Bo. Yes, you know what it is. Oh my days. It is Thursday night, and this is On the Bywire. I'm Dan Lewis, and we have another packed show for you guys tonight. Oh my days. Don't you love that Thursday feeling? It's like there's one more day to the weekend. Come on, let's do this. Let's get through Friday. All the good vibes, all the good times, all the good rhythms and rhymes. Yes, let's get to that weekend and have some fun. I don't care what Burris has got to say. We're going to have some fun. We're going to keep in the rules, but we're going to have some fun. Trust me. Come on, people. Now, I hope you have your beverages to hand. I say beverages because it is a half-hour show, so I know you're going to get through 5 or 6 of them in this time. And I hope you are sat comfortably because we have got some fun for you. Now, what's going on in the world? England are through to the next stage of the Euros. Things are hotting up for the team, and it looks set to be a potentially sad night for England fans when they take on Germany next week. Oh man, I shouldn't say this. I'm terrible. But also, there was a shock late last night as we heard the news that the man behind the pop-ups telling you not to go on your favorite websites, John Mcafee, the inventor of the Mcafee antivirus, has died in his Spanish prison cell. Recently, John has been very vocal on Twitter with many interesting views, so there was immediately much suspicion around his death. Now, there's probably more to come on that story, and we might cover it soon. I'll wait and see. I am slightly disappointed that when I tweeted him and asked him why I couldn't go on all my favorite websites, but my dad still managed to get scammed all the time when he used the Mcafee. That still happens, but oh well, sometimes we don't get answers to the questions we want in life. Over in the halls of Westminster now, Boris is still hiding from meetings about social care, while Labour are saying that they shouldn't go in too hard on it because the Tories might attack them for it. Well, that's what the opposition does, yo. Oh, anyway, also today they are making changes to travel restrictions. The games of distraction continue. Trust me, they are pros at this distraction stuff. Also, Keith Starmer has employed former special advisor to Tony Blair, Matthew Doyle, as an interim comms director. Now, it must be noted that Blair continued to shed votes for Labour in his time as leader, and Doyle was working for him at that time as an advisor. Also, he worked on Gordon Brown's failed election campaign and Liz Kendall's failed leadership pitch. Things can only get better, Keith. Now, our headline news today: should we leave the BBC to go bust? Forget Channel 4, or do we need the state-owned media organization? Debs Grayson from the Media Reform Coalition is in the house and is here to answer those questions. Debs, you're with us? Yes, there have been some internet difficulties. I believe you've been speaking to John McDonnell about getting yourself some a universal broadband access or something, right?
Yeah. Chatting to him yesterday. He's on it.
Brilliant. It's good to know John McDonnell is on the case. How are you doing? How's your day been? Are you feeling good?
Yeah, I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling a little bit sketchy about tethering to my phone. But we'll see how we go.
It's all right. It's okay. We're going to make it anyway. Name the movie and you get 500 points. Anyway, the BBC and beyond. What is this? Because obviously I've had a little read of the website, and you got a lot of people on the internet. They even put it on like their Twitter names. They say, don't pay your TV license, or even in their bios on their social media accounts, I don't pay my TV license. And then there's other people who are like, no, save EastEnders and save The Archers and all this stuff. And I to be fair, I listen to a few BBC things. I like some of their stuff, but what are you saying? Are you saying get rid of the BBC, or are you saying reform the BBC, or something totally different? Tell me it all, please.
So the BBC and Beyond campaign, the other half of the title is Reimagining Public Media. And I guess in lots of ways, the campaign is trying to get away from some of those maybe false binaries, like are you pro or anti the BBC? Like they sort of box you into a corner, and you end up either having to defend an institution, which does often behave indefensibly, or kind of saying get rid of it, when we know that what that will result in is just Rupert Murdoch having even more power and control. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to talk more broadly about what we're calling public media, and we're saying that public media are defined by kind of 4 principles. Public media are media that are independent, so they're able to hold powerful interests to account. They are accountable themselves when they do harm. They are democratic, so they're participatory and they represent diverse lives, and they're for everyone, so they're universally accessible. And we say if you're kind of living out those principles, then you can really act in the public interest rather than the interests of wealthy owners or government. So those principles are similar to the foundational principles of the BBC and Channel 4, although neither of those has a principle around participation, which I think is significant. But they're bigger than that, right? And actually, we want this idea of public media to encompass things like the best of community radio or media cooperatives like the Bristol Cable or the Ferret in Scotland. And actually, often those are the ones which live out the idea of acting in the public interest most effectively. And we think if we can have this kind of broader conversation around the concept of public media, then maybe we can get into more of a headspace of talking about the kind of media that we really want, rather than being kind of trapped in this like endlessly talking about the problems with the media that we have. The campaign's been running since January. We've been running a whole set of events, and I'll talk a bit later about the events that we've got coming up next week. But at the moment, we're having these events, we're talking to lots of people, and over the summer, we're going to write a manifesto for a people's media. And then we're going to be doing some workshops on that and then pushing that out and kind of building a public campaign around that. And I'd just say, I think one of the things which has really come out of the conversations we've had so far is, this loss of trust in institutions like the BBC is really profound. And lots of people really see it as a state broadcaster. They don't see it as independent from government. And that's actually backed up by some of the conversations we're having with people that work in the BBC, including quite senior people who say, actually, these days, they do just think about the government in all of the decisions that they make. And of course they do, because you can see the government turn around in terms of, reacting to anything the BBC does that they don't like is so fast. And then the BBC, the government holds the purse strings. The BBC suffered a real terms cut of a third in the last 10 years. And that's partly through freezing the license fee and also through making the BBC pay for a whole load of other things like broadband rollout and, covering the cost of the free licenses that still go to some over 75s. So the BBC is in quite dire straits. And it seems like the atmosphere within the institution is quite bleak. Decisions are being made without consultation with staff. Like, for example, children's programming just got put into BBC Studios, so it just became part of their commercial money-making wing. And that was a decision that was made without talking to staff at all. So I think lots of people within the BBC feel very demoralised. They feel very defensive. And then when you try and talk about reforming it, then they immediately become quite, they become frightened that what you're talking about is getting rid of it. And I guess our campaign is trying to shift the focus a bit and say, so I think our manifesto is going to talk about what we think should happen for the BBC and for Channel 4. But it's also going to say, we actually think there needs to be a new kind of public media infrastructure in the UK. And the building blocks are already there in exactly those, independent media, community radio, media cooperatives. Like, there are people already doing it, but what they don't have is a sustainable business model, and what they don't have is sustained funding. So if there was a new source of funding, and there's been loads of ideas around taxing Google and Facebook and the big tech giants, creating a new source of money that can then, we're not saying it should fund every part of this ecology or it should be funding all of it, but just giving some foundations and some security that can address, the massive issues that we have, which, they are about the lack of holding government to account, but they're also about the massive gaps in local news. The latest Media Reform Coalition research on this found 65% of local areas no longer have a daily newspaper. That's absolutely massive. The news deserts in this country are massive. Yeah. And that's up from, I think it was around 40% 10 years ago. So it's hugely increased. I think that's that, and in some ways, really talking about this other infrastructure and what it could look like, and what it puts people in more of an imaginative headspace, and then when you're, and it also, I think that's really essential for rebuilding trust in the whole idea of public media, because at the moment, I think it's particularly acute in England. I think there's a bit of a different attitude in Scotland and Wales around the idea that you can have a public institution that receives money from the state but isn't just an arm of government. And in Northern Ireland, I think there's other dynamics going on. I think they also are very cynical about the ability of institutions to be independent of government, but for slightly different reasons. But yeah, I think it was a bit of a light bulb moment for me when I was like, oh yeah, the BBC, or like as a campaign team, we were like, yeah, the BBC is a media institution, but it's also a public institution. And I think some of the things going on with the BBC are actually similar to things going on with other public institutions. What we've seen become much more acute in the last 10 years is the government using public institutions to roll out government policy. For example, Prevent, for example, border policies in universities and hospitals. The stuff that's going on in the last week, where they're talking about the Electoral Commission, or the stuff with the Charity Commission. There are these real attacks on public bodies, and making sure that they become arms of the government and can't hold the government to account. And I think the BBC is caught up in some of those same dynamics. So there's an understandable loss of trust in the idea that if you fund something through taxation, through the state, then it becomes an arm of government. But if we don't have that kind of funding for media, what are we left with? You have to fund it through advertising, or you have to fund it through subscriptions. And what we know is that neither of those can provide a universal service. They can't meet everybody. They can't meet the needs of Welsh speakers and Gaelic speakers. They can't, provide good quality children's programming. They can't fill all the gaps that kind of state-backed provision can do. So yeah, there's a real need to build trust in the idea of public media.
I suppose also what you're talking about a little bit here is like the democratization of the access to media as well. One thing that I always look back to is, and the main man, Jamal Edwards, Smoky Bars, SBTV on YouTube, he was a part of a lot of young people. He's the same age as me. When we were young, like I didn't know him, but we were the same age. We used to get our parents' video cameras, and we'd go to like the estate, the park, wherever, meet up with the man them, couple gal them, and film a little music video, and then we'd bang it on YouTube, right? And the fact that we had the video camera in our house meant that we had a slight bit of privilege there. And then the fact that we had access to the internet to be able to put it online. And then there was things like Channel U or Channel AKA, where we were able to broadcast that to an even wider audience to an extent. And that was, for me, that was like a massive opportunity to get into media. Without that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking about media right now. And I suppose a lot of what you're talking about really is giving people access to some basic things so that they can actually see something that they would appreciate. So if I compare that, me wanting to hear grime MCs rapping about whatever, people in Wales, they want to hear people speaking Welsh on TV talking about Welsh issues. What a comparison I just did there, grime to Wales. Wow. But that's what we do on the Bywire. Now the manifesto, this sounds exciting, because what happens though once this manifesto's pulled together? I like the People's Manifesto, but what happens then? Is it going to go to government? Are there going to be some kind of actions, or what's the next steps from there?
So, I mean, we'll definitely be talking to politicians and, trying to see where there are avenues. I mean, realistically, this current government I don't think it's interested in the kinds of measures that we're talking about. It's certainly not interested in the kinds of measures we'd be talking about for the BBC. But I do think that there is some possibility. So, for example, the Welsh government seems interested in the idea of creating a new journalism fund. I think there's more openings in Scotland as well, although they're probably going to be quite preoccupied with other stuff in the next couple of years. But yeah, I think and then, you know, it could be that where you have kind of local councils that are open to this kind of idea, you know, maybe Andy Burnham would be interested in doing something in Greater Manchester, for example, like the Metro Mayors could be another route in. Again, just in some ways, I think this needs a bit of proof of concept. Like, can we test something out and show that actually you do create better quality content, you create, and you also show the impacts of it, right? So because it's not just about media content, it's about what happens next. So someone was telling me today, I haven't looked this up, but they tell you about some research which showed correlations between availability of local news in an area and turnout in elections. And that makes total sense, right? That it makes sense that those things would be there. It's about people's ability to participate in life generally. I mean, for example, we did an event on community media, and someone was talking about, what's it called? Maybe Ice FM, a community radio station in Newcastle, which is like really targeting the Asian community, run by the Asian community, and how that was such an important source of information during the pandemic. And loads of people were accessing information about what they could get as a small business, what the local restrictions were, that, you know, that was a trusted source of news for them. So you see the impact of when you have it, and you also see the impact of when you don't have it. And it's not just about seeing yourself represented. Sure, you know, you want to see grime, you want to hear Welsh spoken. Those things are really important, but it's also about your ability to participate in the rest of society.
Most definitely. And the trust level as well. Like, totally get what you're saying. You know, when when I see Piers Morgan on TV, I'm like, nah. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when it's, let's say, I don't know, Ishmael from down the road, I'm like, well, I know Ishmael's mum. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that you're going to get people's families and everything, but you get the point I'm saying. I really like it. It is a fantastic, I think, a fantastic campaign. And I think also what you're doing, not just about the manifesto, is you're opening up a world of ideas for people, because for so long, the media has been one thing and gone in one direction. And people haven't been able to think outside of the box. What can the media look like when it is in the hands of the people? Which is a perfect opportunity for me to plug bywire.news, our website, where you can donate to Bywire, help us keep going, and also take part in some ownership of the media. So make sure you do check out the website, people, and also the Media Reform Coalition. We've got links to them on there. Now, you said about earlier, Debs, about some events you got coming up this Monday. There's one. What do the events look like? You know, what goes on? You said they're participatory. You know, what exactly going on, and how do they lead into the manifesto process? And where can we tune in to the one on Monday?
So we've been running a whole series of events on different topics. You can find all of the past events on the Media Reform Coalition YouTube. So we've got one around trade unions and worker rights in media, one on community media. We did one on a few days ago, on constitutional crisis and public media, focusing on Northern Ireland. And then on Monday, we've got one about Scottish public media. And then we've also got another one on Thursday, which is about Welsh public media. And I think these both are going to be really, really good. They're slightly different formats. The first one is going to be streamed across all of Media Reform Coalition's channels. Next Thursday's one is a Zoom seminar. So that's one that you do need to register beforehand on the Eventbrite. But you can find all of this stuff on the Media Reform Coalition social media, on our Facebook and our YouTube. And I think that, you know, the event, they're as participatory as it's realistic to be when you're streaming to a couple of thousand people. So we do take questions off of the different platforms and pose them to the panelists. We have a few panelists. They give a kind of short introduction, and then we do a Q&A and try and have as much of a discussion as we can. And then the way it will feed into the manifesto is slightly mysterious, but I think some magic's going to happen this summer. But it definitely has already happened, in that, like, for example, this thing of really needing to advocate a separate infrastructure, that's come out of these conversations. It's come out of hearing the disaffection that people feel with the BBC, as well as hearing the, like, worries and concerns about the BBC workers, and and trying to figure out like what kind of campaign might be able to get those people on the same page, and talking something of the same language. Because at the moment, the BBC is just losing friends left, right, and centre. And we're going to come up to the charter renewal process. The charter is going to be renewed in 2027. So 2025, 26, this thing is going to be going on, and it's going to have no friends left. Maybe if we can engage people with a campaign around a different kind of infrastructure, it might make them feel more, make some of those disaffected people feel more like they want to be in solidarity with the BBC.
This is a whole damn vibe. Like, I'm feeling it big time, because I mentioned at the beginning there, there's people like, oh, don't pay the TV license, and then there's other people who are like, keep the BBC, and it's what's the words? It's a binary choice. It's either pro BBC or anti BBC. Whereas this is actually talking, hold on a minute, reform the media. Like, this is really talking about how we put the media into people's hands, and I love that. As a regular viewer of the show, I'm sure you know that I'm always talking about putting the media into people's hands, so that is fantastic. So one last time before I let you go, Monday night, what time?
At 6 p.m. BST.
Brilliant. And what I've done is I've posted a link in the comments for anyone watching. If you're on Twitter and you're watching, we finally got Twitter working. Vibes. It's bbcandbeyond.net, because we can't post links there. I don't know what's going on. I'll call up Twitter later. But I'll have a word with John McDonald, see if he can sort it out. But yeah, no, like, definitely I'll be tuning in to your shows, so long as they don't clash with mine, obviously. But thank you so much, Debs. Really appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
Yeah.
Good luck with everything you're doing. I will be taking part, and anytime you need anything, shouting out, whatever, on Twitter or even on the show, let us know. We'll definitely have you back here.
And two quick other things. Just if you want to contribute to the manifesto, then you can go to bbcandbeyond.net, and we've got a form there where you can send in manifesto ideas. And if you want updates on the campaign, then you can also sign up to our newsletter on that website.
Hey, your internet stayed the whole way through as well, that's big. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Debs. I hope you have a fantastic evening, and you enjoy your weekend as well. When the weekend comes, you enjoy your weekends. I'll see you later. Thank you. Bye. Woo, that is exciting. Oh my days. Listen, guys, like, Media Reform Coalition, those guys involved in that, they are really cool people. Like, I've met a few of them, and Debs is like the latest in the line of people. These guys, they're doing cool stuff, man. And when I talk about putting media into the hands of the people, and I talk about us taking ownership of like what's being broadcast and taking down those media moguls in their mansions on their islands, not paying any taxes, these are the guys who are like at the forefront of actually challenging that whole narrative that's going on there. So big up Debs, big up the MRC, big up the BBC and Beyond crew. Dunno. Now, boy, in the world of independent media, we are starting off tonight with our friends at Alt Africa, who, well, they have got a special review in looking at the Windrush Caribbean Film Festival, which launched on Tuesday. The festival is hosted by Juliet Brown and runs from the 23rd of July to the 29th of August. It's screening films that are unseen in the UK, and it is set to be an exciting festival, highlighting a sense of celebration associated with Carnival. I am praying so hard that we will get a taste of Carnival this year, and I think this might be the closest thing to it. Like, honestly though, come on, real talk, yeah? What is it, 66,000 that go into Wembley for the football, and thousands in Ascot, and just look at the politicians last week at their barbecue for the G7, yeah? I'm seeing loads of white people going to events with big crowds, but Africa, oh yeah, and Notting Hill Carnival are cancelled. Something's going on here. Anyway, back to the point, yeah? Alt Africa have the exclusives when it comes to the WCFF 2021. Make sure you check it out. I'm sure Alt Africa will have much more to say on there. So add that one to your bookmarks. You don't know. And over to Byline Times. They are calling out China on their lies regarding the Uyghur genocide. Okay, so if you don't know anything about the Uyghur genocide, like definitely look it up. But in a really childish spat, when the Canadians contacted China regarding the reports of the violence, China replied, calling Canada out on their history with indigenous people. And then China then called out the US on their lack of support for Palestine and what's going on with Palestine and Israel. Now, I was once taught to take the plank out of my eye before attempting to take the chip out of someone else's. Just imagine all these world leaders. I'm imagining it. Imagine all these world leaders walking around with planks of wood in their eyes at UN meetings, like, Okay, I'll stop that. But real talk. This is a serious issue. And Byline Times look into the details of what evidence there is, but also asking the question as to why China are so quick to block any investigation or observation, yet they say they have nothing to hide. Meanwhile, how about we stop killing people? Big up CJ Wellerman for covering that story. It goes in depth, as always, with Byline Times, so big up the crew there. Now, open the doors to democracy now, because Iris Pass from Open Democracy has brought something sensible to the Brexit debate. I'm loving this. You know, I know I said try and avoid the whole Brexit vibes and that, but bear with me because this is a good one. 5 years on from the Brexit vote, we must fight for the rights of all migrants in the UK, not for EU exceptionalism. Now, I'm down with this. This is it. It's a great start to the piece, and Iris explains their situation, what is going on in regards to immigration for EU citizens currently in the EU, but also the ones that are wanting to come to the UK, and also those that are already here. My view is we should be building way more bridges and taking down borders. Now, this piece ends with a tweet from Daniel Sahage, director of human rights advocacy and support organization Stand for All, which reads, fighting for migrants has to be about all migrants. Otherwise, it very rapidly starts to fracture and fragment and becomes about no migrants. That's on point for me, boy. So definitely head over to Open Democracy, read more about it and see exactly what's going on. Also, a helpful reminder there that some of the changes for EU migrants here in the UK that do need citizenship is coming up next week. So there's a lot of really important information there. Now over to Declassified, who this week are throwing shots at the government's dodgy arms activities, and I'm here for it. I'm fully here for it, fam. Phil Miller from Declassified UK has brought to light the secret Whitehall committee that holds no records. And when Zara Sultana MP asked about the committee in Parliament, the government didn't seem to know much about it. The only way it came to light was through former UK Foreign Minister Alan Duncan mentioning it in his memoirs, that he attended a session with the committee as a Conservative MP. It's amazing what these politicians can remember when they've got a book to sell, but when it comes to an inquiry, the papers seem to have disappeared. Now, big up Zara as well for pushing on this issue in Parliament and challenging the years of corruption around arms, oil, gas, and the Middle East. This government love it. Blair, Cameron, May, and Boris, you all have blood on your hands, and the truth will come out. Trust me. Now, I'm looking forward to the next part in this situation here, where the government are pretending it never happens, because you know, Declassified, they're like a dog with a bone with these things, man. Real talk. Now, over to Sheffield. I love Sheffield, man, especially now then. You guys, now then, they're a bit concerned about the council over in Sheffield because they've given £5,000 from a Windrush project that was given to an organization called Ignite Imaginations. Now, there's a twist in this because you would expect Ignite Imaginations, well, they would have some kind of link to Windrush or even have, you know, at least some people of color on their trustees, but the organization has all white trustees, all white staff, and at the time, according to their website, had no active work ongoing with any artists of color. Twitter users were quick to point this out, and the money has been returned with an offer from Ignite to volunteer their time to help the project. Personally, I think the project itself is great and shines a light on the unheard Windrush stories of Sheffield. Check out the Now Then website for the full story from Shahid Azadi. Now over to Danny Chivers, writing in the New Internationalist. Now, I love this piece. I just think it speaking truth to power, really. Let the people protect the forests. I just let the people protect the forests. I think Danny has delivered an eloquent argument on how we should protect the world's forests. The people who know them best. Do you know what I mean? Who better than the people who have lived in the forest and looked after them for thousands, maybe more, likely more years. This year, there will be many roundtable events and meetings where all kinds of world leaders, local politicians, environmentalists, activists, and more will be talking about how we protect the world's future and the lungs of the earth, our forests. So why not ask the people who know the forests best? I can't disagree with a word in this beautiful piece. So big respect to Danny for pointing out the obvious and doing it so well. It's the same old story, really, with this. It's rich people in suits sitting around making decisions for people elsewhere in the world that they know nothing about, and damaging the future of our children, their children, and, well, our futures as well. Now, our final story of the day is from our friends at the Norwich Radical, taking on rape culture. Now, I've got to give a little shout out to the Norwich Radical. We haven't featured them yet on the show, and they are a group of volunteers who put together all the work on their website for free. So big up them. Head over to the website and look at how you can support them, share their work, and look into what they're saying. Students at the University of East Anglia are taking things into their own hands, working on educating people while also challenging the university to fix its failed disciplinary process. There are some heartbreaking stories to be told, and the students are looking for more to be told through their platforms and help them create a safer future for students and women everywhere. I think this is fantastic. Just like in the last story where we were talking about going to the people who are most affected, in the global south by the deforestation of our world. Just in this story, obviously there are differences, but what we're saying is going to the people who have been affected by rape culture, the people who have been impacted, the people who have been damaged, and the people who have been abused. Going to them, finding out their stories, hearing exactly what they have to say, what they've been through, and what can be done to improve. Well, first of all, get rid of rape culture, but in the interim, improve the processes that are in place to help people that have been through any of these horrifying circumstances. And please forgive me if my words have not been affectionate enough. As someone, as a male, in a position where I haven't specifically experienced this, my heart goes out to everyone in this position, and I hope that obviously the team at Norwich Radical do you justice, and the people involved in this campaign also do justice as well. It is much needed, and much respect to you guys over there. There you have it. There is our roundup of today's independent media news stories. A big, massive thank you and love to the Media Reform Coalition, especially Debs Grayson, for coming through and talking about BBC and beyond. That is an exciting project. I cannot wait to get involved in it. Obviously, you know what it is. Hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the retweet button, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, all the buttons. You know where they are. You hit them, and check out bywire.news for the latest in independent media news, where you can find all of our independent media partners who are providing you with just a glimmer tonight of the stories that they are providing all day, every day, 7 days a week, 24 hours, 365 days a year. I was trying to remember how many days in a year are. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in tonight, people. It is Thursday night, so I hope that you can get through the next 3 days without me, but I will be back on Monday with the one and only Claudia Fior, bringing you the vibiest vibes and the latest in independent media news here on the Bywire through Bywire News. I'm Dan Lewis. You know what it is. Peace and love, my people.